Uh, I want to, first of all, thank the National Society of High School Scholars for inviting the Securities and Exchange Commission into their financial wellness series. We greatly appreciate it. My name is Robert Marchman, and I am Senior Policy Advisor on Diversity and Inclusion at the Securities and Exchange Commission. With me today, I'm pleased to note, are two of my colleagues at the SEC, Alan Sorcher, who's an Assistant Director in the Securities Exchange Commission's Office of Investor Education and Advocacy, and Evelyn Williams, who is a Senior Program Manager in the Office of Minority and Women Inclusion. Before we begin today's program, I want to note, as is standard for SEC staff when speaking in these type of engagements, to note a disclaimer, which is that any of the views or statements that any of us make tonight are our own and are not reflective of the commission, any commissioners, or any SEC staff. And that is a standard statement that is always made when SEC staff participates in public presentations. So tonight, what we're going to do is have a discussion regarding the basics of investing and also careers in the financial services industry. We want to encourage you all to please ask any questions at any point in time during the presentation. We are again feel very fortunate to be here. We are well aware of the students who comprise NSHSS, and know that you all will ask a number of questions. So please don't hesitate. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Alan Sorcher to talk about the basics of investing. And again, thank you for being here with us tonight. Alan?
Thank you, Robert, and I'm very happy to be here as well. It's exciting to see people from all over the country. This is an aptly titled program, Investing in Our Future. I'm going to talk about the basics of investing, but it is all about investing in our future. Investing is important to all of us to build wealth for all the important things we need in life. So I'm going to go through and feel free to ask questions. Robert is going to be monitoring that. Robert already handled this disclaimer, but I will want to emphasize one thing, that I am a lawyer, but I'm not giving any legal advice. And most importantly, I'm not giving you any investment advice. I'm giving you information to help you be better investors, to help you make better decisions for yourselves throughout your lives. So the SEC, where Evelyn, Robert, and I work, real quick overview. We have a three-part mission: protect investors, maintain fair, orderly, and efficient markets, and facilitate capital formation. Usually when I mention that, people think, oh, yeah, great, what does that mean? Well, here's a little bit about what it means. We accomplish our mission by doing three primary things, but lots of things that comprise these three things. We administer and enforce the federal securities laws. We oversee brokers and investment advisors and mutual funds and other market participants, and we review the filings of most public companies. The most important thing we do is protect investors. And just a real short history lesson: the SEC was created in 1934. I don't know how many people remember history. What was significant about that? It followed a really horrific event for the country, and that was the stock market crash of 1929 and the Great Depression. And the SEC was created to basically be the regulator over the stock markets and enforce the securities laws, because before the SEC and the securities laws are created, there was lots of fraud. And one of the things that contributed to the stock market crash was people running around defrauding each other without having any rules to follow. Okay, so what are we going to cover today? First thing, debt and credit. Hopefully that's not a big issue for you because all of you are young people. Secondly, saving and investing. That's the key of what I'm going to be talking about. And then the key to saving and investing is starting investing early with your first job. Okay, managing debt and credit. here's the relationship between credit and debt. You probably all have credit cards. Are credit cards a good or bad thing? I'm gonna ask people to put this into the chat box. Credit cards, good or bad? Good or bad? I can't see the chat box. I'm gonna rely on Robert and Evelyn if we're getting any responses. I don't know if we're getting more good or bad, but it's both. They're both. They're good and bad. Let's talk about quickly about the good things and the bad things. The good things, they allowed you to purchase things for emergencies or otherwise that you may not have the immediate money to pay off. So you use a credit card and you pay them over time. The bad thing is that you can abuse them, spend too much, get into heavy debt. The other really important good thing is that by using them, you establish a credit history, which is really important to establishing a credit record and a credit score. And that allows you later in life to get loans for school, mortgages, and your credit score is even important for getting a job. So let's look at the cost of credit and potentially one of the downsides of using credit cards. So two scenarios here. Somebody who bought a computer fully paid up front. Luckily this person had $2,000, put it down and got the computer. That person's friend bought the same computer, didn't have the $2,000, paid $50 each month to pay off the credit on the computer. 5 years later, person has paid off the computer. What did it actually cost? $2,850, so almost 50% more than the person who paid in cash. And the other piece of it is not only was it more expensive, but after 5 years, what's the story with that computer? Probably you need a new one. So that's the cost of credit. It costs $850 more to use a credit card. That's the bad part of credit cards. The part I want to emphasize is I said it's important to use credit cards responsibly and to manage your credit responsibly because it's important to your credit score. So as most of you know, a bad credit score is low. So 300 is like the worst credit score. The best credit score is 850. Most of us are somewhere in between. I don't know how many of you know your credit score. It's pretty easy to find out. But the important thing is that if you have a low credit score, it's hard to get things like loans for homes and cars. And a low credit score also not only means it's trouble getting loans, but if you do, the rate of interest may be higher. Higher credit scores makes it easier to get loans for cars and homes, and usually it means getting a lower interest rate. So let's take a look at an example of the impact of a high credit score versus a low credit score. So we'll take two people, Robert and me. Robert's on the left. He's got a credit score between 760 and 850. He applies for a mortgage. He gets a rate of 3.76. His monthly payment is $927. And after 30 years, the final cost of his $200,000 mortgage is $333,000. My credit score, I wasn't as careful with my credit cards. My credit score was between 620 and 639. I went to the same bank as Robert did. I got a rate of 5.34, higher than almost a point and a half higher than Robert's. My monthly payment was more. And the final cost after 30 years of my paying off my mortgage on my house was $401,000, $70,000 more. So that's just the impact for a mortgage of a higher credit score. And that emphasizes the reason that it's important to monitor and manage your credit responsibly and watch your credit score. Now, the question is, if I have a bad credit score, am I doomed? Am I stuck with it? Is that the end of me? The answer is no. There are things you can do about it. You can get more responsible about your credit and your use of credit cards. There are ways to improve your credit score. Pay your bills on time every time. That is a big way, right? So don't spend more than you have and pay that bill each month on time, the full amount. Another way is don't get close to your credit limit. If your credit limit is $5,000, spending $5,000 every month doesn't look good for those who determine your credit score, the credit bureaus. A long credit history helps your score, but if you're young, that's not going to be a way to do that. Only apply for credit you need. Okay, so you get something in the mail, a offer to open a new credit card. If you don't need it, you shouldn't apply for it. Too many credit cards don't help your credit score. Most importantly, you should check not only your credit score, but your credit report regularly. Okay, one way to do that is at annualcreditreport.com. And I want to emphasize not only your credit score, but your credit report, because you should make sure when you check it that it only has credit cards that you've opened. If you check your credit report and there's a credit card that you don't recognize, it may mean that someone has stolen your identity and opened up a credit card without you knowing about it. So the point I want to emphasize there is credit score, important to manage that, and also check your credit report. Okay, so that's the ins and outs, really short overview of how to manage your credit and why it's important. And now I want to talk about saving and investing and why that is critically important. And let's talk about saving first. Why is it important to save for emergencies? A lot of surveys have been done that show that many Americans don't have enough money to cover small emergencies. So having some cash in an emergency fund is really important. Education. I'm sure you all know well enough the cost of education. So it's important to have money set aside for education, for college, graduate school. Big purchases like a home when you're older, and of course with family expenses go on and on, those of us who are parents know. So saving is important. And you can't start investing unless you have something to invest, and that comes from savings. So what's the difference between saving and investing? Right? The money, savings is money you earn but don't spend. You get your paycheck from your part-time job, you put it into your bank, it's not making much interest, but you're saving and building up your saving. What's investing? It's taking that money and making it grow. How does that happen? Well, the easiest way to explain how investing over time makes money and earns money is talking about compound interest. So let's just say you go to the bank and you're able to get a CD, a certificate of deposit that pays 3%, and you invest $1,000. The first year, you make 3% on your $1,000, and the next year, you make interest on not only your principal, but the interest you earned, and so on and so on and so on. So you're always making interest on your principal and the interest that your money is making. And that's how compounding works, or compound interest. My graph here is showing a $1,000 investment over 40 years. It turns into $15,000. If you simply put the money on your pillow or in your top dresser drawer, it doesn't grow. The Dow Jones, I don't know how many of you have heard of the Dow Jones Index. It's the index of our 30 largest companies in the United States. And this is showing what's happened between over 30 years. And you can see that over the 30 years, it's gone from 6,000 to 28,000. There are a lot of little zigs in there, and what the zigs down are years where the market dropped. But what's happening over time? What's happening over the 30 years? Look at the growth. If you had invested in the stock market when the market was at 6,000, and 30 years later it's at 28,000, your money would have grown and you would have built wealth. Okay, here's a question I want to ask, and if you want to answer this in the chat box. True or false? All investments have risk. True or false?
Most of the responses you're getting are true.
Okay, super. Okay, you're all absolutely right. All investments do have risk, okay? And the simple answer is if they didn't have risk, all of us in this room today, including Robert, Evelyn, and I, would invest and we'd all become rich. But the fact of the matter is all investments do have risk, which is why you have to be careful and why we all have to become rich. So here's a chart that I think is a good way to explain what the risk is in the stock market. So looking at it from 1926 to 2019, this is the stock market performance. I'm going to ask you what you notice about that, okay? I'm hoping you notice that the up years, or the stalagmites, the arrows going up, greatly outnumber the arrows going down, or the stalactites. Well, the stalactites, right? But the up years greatly outnumber the down years, okay? So what does that mean? That means that, if you go back to the chart I showed you, over the long term, the stock market performs. Now, when I show the chart, I've gotten a lot of questions. Alan, does that mean the stock market always comes back? Alan, does it mean that next year the stock market is going to be up? I can tell you those are questions that no one can answer. Employees of the SEC can answer it. Warren Buffett can answer it. There's no guarantee the stock market is going to come up if it was down the year before. But if you look at this chart, history tells us that the stock market does come back. We can't say how quickly. We can't say we can't guarantee it. But if you look over the past 75 years, the stock market does come back. So this is the trend that I hope impacts you. Realizing that, yeah, there may be some down years, but the up years greatly outnumbered. As you hold for the long term, you'll make money. The other thing I want to emphasize about risk is that risk and return are related. Okay, what do I mean? If you have money in the bank and you're getting less than 1%, you have very little risk with that money. Okay, the bank goes belly up. What happens? The bank is insured by the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. It comes in and makes all the holders in the bank whole. So there's very little risk. If you've heard of bonds pay a little bit more interest than banks do, and there's some risk. If a bond is issued by a city, like let's take Detroit for example, there's some risk there because some cities do go bankrupt. Detroit did. If you held a bond by the city of Detroit, you would have had to stand in line with other creditors to see how much you got paid on your bonds. And then stocks, which offer the highest potential return, also have the highest risk. So over the long term, stocks on average, okay, have returned about 8%. That's on average. Some years at 30%. Some years are negative, but on average they're 8%. But there are risks with stocks. What are the risks? The risks are numerous. A company can go out of business. I don't know how many of you have heard of Enron, but there are the longest of companies that have gone out of business. What happens to your shares when the company goes out of business? They become worthless. And then stocks are like the trends of the markets, right? So if you were a stockholder in 2008, you can see is that arrow right past 2006. Most likely, like most of us, you would have lost money. So you have to remember that the risk and return are related. If someone tells you that a great investment is going to make 20%, but there are no risk involved, it's a red flag of potential fraud.
Hey, Alan,
Yeah.
two questions. One, is investing only for people who are considered wealthy? And then I guess because you were looking at short and long term, then the question is that was posed is what is a day trader?
Okay, two really good questions. Stock investing is not for people who are only wealthy, and Evelyn's going to talk about a personal story to explain why that's the case. But also for Robert and me, you have to have. So it's a good question because everyone needs something to invest. Everyone needs some savings to invest. So if you're not wealthy, the question becomes, what am I investing on? Spending all my money on my rent, on my family, on school. How do I invest? You have to have some savings. I'm going to talk about ways to do that. So the simple answer is, it's not for the wealthy. It's not only for the wealthy, but you have to manage your budget so you have something to invest. The second question, Robert, was,
what is a day trader?
Okay, so a day trader is somebody that is trading actively each day, trying to time the market to pick the days when he or she thinks the market is going to be up or down. And historically, what's happened with people who are day traders who are trying to time the market is that they don't perform as well as the overall market. And here's why. Okay, nobody could have predicted that in 2008 the stock market would have gone down 40%. Nobody could have predicted that after the stock market went down in 2008, the next 10 years would be bull markets. So day traders are people who are trying to time the markets, trading in and out each day, and no one can time the markets because the markets react to lots of different factors that are out of our control. The best way that history has shown to invest in the stock markets is long-term patient investing.
Yeah. So
Okay.
to that point, I just wanted to chat, if I just add to that. So one of the chat, Alan, referenced, even you were looking at the chart with the losses and the gains, the spikes, right? One of the comments was that if you hold on to your stock during one of the downturns, in essence, you could be down and not actually incur a loss when the stock goes up. And I guess that goes to your issue of long term. And why that's important, as someone who experienced this from the approach I had at the time as a regulator, is and why what we're doing today is critically important for you all, and why we want to have these conversations so you can understand risk investing. When in 2008, 2009, when the market turned down, there were a number of people who unfortunately didn't have this type of discussion that we're having now, to have an understanding of how the market works, that it's in cycles, goes up and down. And so what they did, unfortunately, is they sold their stock when the market was down and actually incurred loss. Many people, or people who knew that this market was cyclical, they incurred what I would say was paper losses. The valuation of their portfolio, their stocks went down, but because they didn't sell, as the market rebounded, they were able to capture that gain. So that goes to the point that Alan was talking about, for the long term, and having an understanding how the market works. And unfortunately, if you don't, you could take actions that could have an adverse impact.
Absolutely. So just to add to that point, so in 2008, people who got scared and got out of stocks when that blip was down there, missed it because they sold their investments. They missed one of the greatest bull market runs of all time. So what this chart really shows is that if you have a long-term horizon, you want to ignore the down blips, okay, and take a long-term view, because in the long term, the market goes up, and that really is this chart right here. So those little blips can get scary at times, but you want to keep that long-term horizon. Over 30 years, look at stock where the ones did. Okay, so starting your first job, why that's important to start investing then. Here's a quick chart, and I'm going to use Evelyn and me for this one. And this slide shows really why investing early is critical. Okay, I think none of you are 20, I don't think we're 25 yet. But I'm going to use this example, and we're going to say Evelyn was at 25. Evelyn was able to start saving $2,000 a year, and she saved $2,000 a year for 10 years. And then at 35, she had some financial obligations. She could no longer put away $2,000 and invest $2,000. So, but she kept her investments going. They got, as an example, hypothetical, they earned about 7% per year. And she kept it going. She didn't contribute anything else to that from 35 to age 65. And at age 65, her account from her saving just from those 10 years had grown to $210,000. Everyone told me when she was starting to save 25 that I should start saving too. I had some financial obligations. I couldn't. So I couldn't start saving and investing until I was 35. Okay. I was lucky then. I was able to put away $2,000 a year. Same investment Evelyn did. I just mimicked her. I was making 7% a year. And I contributed $2,000 a year from 35 to 65 for 30 years. Okay, 30 years I was putting $2,000, and so my investment total was $60,000. But when we both turned 65, Evelyn had $210,000 and I had $188,000. I'm going to ask you math wizards out there: is there something wrong with those numbers? Is that possible? How could that be? I put away $60,000, and Evelyn only put away $20,000, but she has more than me. Something's been wrong. You can do the calculations yourselves, and you'll get this. The reason is compounding. Evelyn started early, and in the years where I was paying off something else, she was saving and investing, and her money had a longer time to grow in the market. So that's why it's critical to start saving, investing early, because over the long term, there's less of a hit now. The question is, well, could I have caught Evelyn at any point? Yeah, I could have caught up to her, but how would I have done that? I have to save more than $2,000 a year. So there's a way to do it, but the critical thing is having your money in the stock market for a long period of time. The longer in the market it is, the longer you can get the growth of the stock market. Okay, I want to address this to the question, the really good question that Robert read, is investing only for wealthy people? Certainly there are things to read that think that, but as I said, and as Robert, Evelyn, and I fully believe, it is not only for wealthy people. It can help everybody, but you have to do something about it. And it is critical to start early, even in small ways. So here's another graph. It doesn't seem right. If you save $50 a month, and again, get 7% on a year, after 5 years, your $50 a month is $3,400. After 10 years, it's over $8,000. And after 20 years, almost $25,000. So $50 a month grew into $25,000. Now, is $50 a lot per month a lot? Well, it could be. But it could be something like not having a coffee at a coffee store in the time we all could go to coffee stores. So $50 a month may not be that hard if you look at your budget and see how you can save. Now, is this possible to do? Can you save $50 a month, and can it amount to anything over time? The answer is yes. Okay, and the three of us really mean that. And Evelyn has a story to show you that yes, this can happen to anybody with diligence over a long career. And so I'm going to let Evelyn talk about how she approached this.
So good evening, everyone. And as Robert and Alan said before, we are very happy to be here. And when we were preparing for this presentation, I thought it was so important to share my journey through financial wellness. And I started somewhere between 1988 and 1990 saving $25 a pay period. And, you know, we get paid biweekly. This is the federal government. So that would be about $50 per month. Now, at the time, I thought, I can't afford to save even $25 a pay period. I felt like I couldn't. Really, I could, you know, if I cut out some of the luxuries, if you will, eating out and things like that, I could have done it. So I decided that I was going to start by saving $25 a pay period. And notice I'm putting a lot of emphasis on that. It's very important. $50 a month. Over time, I was able to make small increments to my retirement. So maybe I went from $25 a pay period to $50 a pay period, from $50 a pay period to $75 or $100 a pay period. And that was based on raises that I received or any bonuses I received. I would increase my allotment or my contribution to my retirement account. Now, again, that was somewhere between 1988 and 1990. Fast forward to 2021. By the time I retire, I will have saved $1 million in my retirement account. And to bring this home to you, I have less than 2 years before I'm first eligible to retire. So I'm sharing my story because it's relevant. Listen, I'm the lady next door, or I was the girl next door that grew up in a working class neighborhood. My parents or my elders at the time, I remember one in particular, everybody would come to my aunt for a loan. She was the one who believed in saving money. So it started at home, but as I got older, it started in the workforce. I had older colleagues who said to me, listen, you need to save. It's very important. And just quickly, the way the retirement was set up, prior to me starting in federal service, it was, you didn't have to save towards your retirement. Uncle Sam essentially took care of your retirement, so you didn't have to save for it. When I started, it was mandatory that you save for your retirement or you wouldn't have any. So, and also let me say, through the journey, I have lost money. So there are risks. I think I lost, four times I remember, like $70,000. That's a lot, right? But compared to the years of savings and the money I was able to make, that's, to me, it was worth the risk. So I wanted to share that. Alan, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share that. And if you all have any questions for me, just put them in the chat and I'll be happy to answer.
Well, Evelyn, you should come in.
Yeah, so to that end, since you both mentioned we wanted to be interactive, a couple of questions so let's address now. So Evelyn, you got some good feedback, so mostly thank you for sharing. And the other point I want to just note that Evelyn talked about, and particularly for those of you in the audience tonight, and kudos to those of you who are participating and starting to think about this, even though you have a long journey ahead of you, and we know it'll be a successful journey career-wise and hopefully investing. What you all need to start thinking about is that the retirement system in this country has shifted from moving away from where you worked at a company, and after you retired, depending on the number of years that you worked, you were given a pension or a payment for retirement. Today, there are many fewer corporations and companies who provide pensions or payouts upon retirement. Instead, you as the employee have to now take the steps to be mindful of putting in place a process and investments so that you can ensure that you have a pot of money when you retire. So understanding investing, understanding something you talked about, risk, all those things are really important for you all with regard to moving forward. And one thing that Evelyn said that I would just underscore, and I too, early on, and I'll talk a little bit about my journey, I did not have an understanding of the financial world investing, but I did have a rudimentary understanding of the importance of saving money away. And as a result of doing that, when I get to the point of retirement, I will have a substantial, some put aside for retirement. But the one point that Evelyn made, and Ellen as well, that I want to underscore is discipline in making the investments. And if you set up a mechanism where you just automatically have money deposited into an account, it's almost like out of sight, out of mind. But the critical thing is to be disciplined, to invest the money, and also not to tap into that money unless there's some unforeseeable event and things happen that we can't foresee. So absent some emergency, and by emergency I mean something that really requires you to leverage these funds as opposed to wanting to go on a vacation, which is not an emergency. That if you are disciplined in the long term, you will benefit that. So that's one thing. Another question we got was, what are the requirements to invest in the stock market?
The requirements are that I think you have to be over 21 to open an account at a brokerage firm. So before that you have to open it with a parent or guardian. That's one. Then there are some minimum amounts depending on how much you're investing. If you're buying mutual funds, but they're fairly low. But I think to that question, the important thing is to open an account as soon as you can. The way that most Americans invest in the market, I probably think the way Evelyn did, but she can correct me if I'm wrong, and the way that most of us in the government do are through investing in mutual funds, not doing stock picking, which can be difficult, and to invest for the long term. So I think the focus should be on opening an account when you can. I want to congratulate everybody on this who's on listening in, because they're thinking about investing way before I did, and then doing what Evelyn did, investing as much as you can per month automatically, and those are the important things. Open an account when you can. If you need your parent, if you're within 21, a parent will do it with you, and start investing in mutual funds and have a long-term view.
Right. Alan, so we're also getting some questions that, well, let me just say this. I'll just preempt this because I know. So we're getting some questions as to, and I appreciate that being asked. We're getting questions like, how do you determine the best bank to place your money in, and also can you recommend some corporations to invest in which we can't? And with regard to those type of questions, I will say, and again, I'll turn it over to you, but just again, based on experience, the one thing you all have, which I don't think, and I don't want to insult any of my colleagues, but the one thing that you all have today that we didn't have is just access to a lot of information at your fingertips by Googling information, getting information. So there's a lot of things that you can do to get research, to start inquiring and getting information on companies that you may be interested in. And if there are entities that you're interested in, you can do research to do comparisons as to who's offering what and what are the best programs. So a lot of that, again, requires you can do research. And Alan, I guess you're going to talk about our website, so I won't mention that again, but that's a resource as well. But Alan, I'll turn it over to you. And Evelyn, of course, if there's anything you want to add, please do.
Alan, if I might, one thing that I wanted to share, and again, please be mindful of the disclaimers in advance. I am not giving you any financial advice. I'm simply sharing my experiences and what worked for me in terms of saving, not so much related to retirement or retirement if you want, to make it less convenient to access your money. That is key. And so I know that there are a number of banks that aren't brick and mortar that you can place your money in and, would take several days for you to get back. Look at the interest rates that are offered on the money that you're investing. I'm not saying any specific place, but do your research. As Robert mentioned, there are so many resources out there, none of which were available and as handy as they are today. So please do your research. Look in terms of banking institutions, online institutions where they have a higher interest rate for savings.
And to that point, I just want to add one thing, because someone had asked the question, do you open up a separate savings account or do you invest in the stock market? One thing that we would say to you, there are a number of different vehicles depending on where you end up being employed, right? So there are, again, we're not recommending, we're just noting these are terms that you can look into and start thinking about. You'll hear a lot about 401ks and Roth IRAs and things. When you start working, we'll just leave you with this. If you work for an employer and they have a fund that they allow employees to invest in, an account. I'm just going to say, for example, for the sake of this discussion, a 401k account, which is a investment account that will be ultimately is designed for retirement. But you get into it, you find out if they match your investment, what monies you put in. If you do not take advantage of that, you're leaving money on the table that is otherwise free to you. So that's another thing that, because people don't inquire, it's important for you to think about. So again, there are a variety of different vehicles, but again, what we would recommend, and there's tools and information even on the SEC website that you can go to assist you with some of these terms and start doing your own research to help you make your own investment.
So last
question, by the way, for everybody.
Those are really good questions. This group has a jury that I certainly didn't have at their age, so that's terrific. Just to wrap up on investing, to emphasize what Freddie was saying, you do today have lots of information you didn't have your age. A lot of it can be a lot of noise that you have to sort of separate and ignore. There's a lot of hype on certain stocks and a lot of volatility in the market on certain stocks. I hate to say it, but we have the wisdom of age to say this, which we have been saying. But this is a case, as Evelyn's example and all of ours shows, that the slow and steady wins the race. And it may not be as exciting as investing in stock that you hear all over social media, but there are a lot of risks with that. And the question that someone raised about day trading, again, trying to get the next momentum or the hot stock has a lot of risk, and so we can speak with not only from our jobs but personal experience that the slow and steady investing over time that many professional investors have taken as well is the way to do it. So I would that's the discipline that we all have talked about. Last couple of points before I hand it over to Evelyn. Just want to remind you that there are people out there who are trying to scam you, and as you get older and have jobs and make more money, to have your radars up. Don't get drawn in by these people. They're experts at playing on your emotions, on persuasion tactics. Something sounds too good to be true, no risk, guaranteed, walk away. Someone's pressuring you to buy something right now, like maybe more typical of a used car salesman. Again, that's a red flag that something's amiss. If you're investing in something, there should be something in writing. And for later on in life, if you're using an investment professional, they're required to be licensed or registered. To emphasize my point that we've all talked about in terms of the hot stuff, the things that are on social media, really be wary of those. We see a lot of them are companies that are just being hyped that are fraudulent. Robert mentioned we have resources at the SEC. We do. Our main one is investor.gov. Great resource if you have questions about investment products or things you're hearing about in the market. We've issued an alert about things that are going on in the market now that's up there that talks about stocks that are hot stocks and volatile markets. And really to underscore the point that Robert mentioned, that is, do your research, okay? Whatever it is that you're buying, do your own research. We find that people, before going out to dinner, everyone's checking on Yelp. Hey, how good is that restaurant? Before you go to a movie, what are the ratings in that movie? You should be doing more than that on your earnings and your savings. So really important to do your homework. We have some financial planning tools, publications, all good stuff. And we have an 800 investor assistance number if you have a question. We have people there who can help investors. We're on Facebook and on Twitter. And so that's the end of my presentation. And I'll say congratulations to all of you for taking an interest this early on in investing. It's a long road, but it's an exciting road. And when you're looking down it looks long. When you have the perspective that Evelyn, Robert, and I, which is looking back, you'll say, holy cow, how did I manage to save that and invest that much? It happens for those who are thoughtful, patient, and do their homework and careful. And I suspect if you're all doing this early in your life, you fall into that category. So good luck to all of you. And if you have any questions, please use our resources.
Thank you, Alan. So now I'm going to turn it over to Evelyn Williams, who's going to talk in a little bit more detail about the work that we do at the Securities and Exchange Commission. Evelyn?
Okay, and I don't have a slide presentation. I have tons of notes. Alan already spoke about or gave an overview of the SEC. So I'm going to ask a question that you should know the answer to. Can anyone tell me, please put it in the chat, how old the SEC is? Just put it in the chat and Robert will look at your answers. So the Securities and Exchange Commission, we have about roughly 4,000 employees, right? As Alan mentioned, I call it the three-legged stool. We protect investors, facilitate capital formation, and maintain fair, orderly, and efficient markets. He's already gone over that. So in the, and at the time, I won't repeat that. I will say that we have 11 regional offices throughout the United States. So from what I call the left coast, which is the west coast, to the east coast, we have New York, Philadelphia, Boston, Washington, DC, which is our headquarters, Atlanta, Miami, Fort Worth, Texas, Chicago, Denver, LA, and San Francisco. Those are all the locations where we have offices, I should say. And as it relates to careers, which is, uber important, we have accountants, attorneys, economists, examiners, IT specialists, auditors, investigators. On the operations side of the house, we have human resources. Without human resources, we wouldn't even hire people. We have facilities. Without them, we wouldn't have a building and furniture and so on. We have security, and of course, we have IT technology. We have acquisitions. We have to have acquisitions because we need products and services. We also have financial management because we need people to manage the money. And then myself, I'm a senior program manager. I didn't say that I am in the office. I remember saying anyway. I am in the Office of Minority and Women Inclusion. That's only as you will hear me refer to moving forward. Part of our goal is leadership and guidance for the SEC efforts to leverage diversity and inclusion throughout the commission. We want to help enhance the performance and the impact of our consumers and investors. Okay, very close. Yeah, very close. I don't know when our birthday is, so I'll go with those. And so, as I mentioned, I'm in the Office of Minority and Office of Minority and Women Inclusion, which is a diversity and inclusion office. I'm also going to ask you all to put examples of diversity in the chat box. Tell us what you think diversity is, or examples of diversity. And so Robert will monitor the chat box and let me know what answers you all come up with. We also, I use the three-legged stool approach, workforce diversity, supplier diversity, and diversity and inclusion in regulated entities. And so with workforce diversity, we promote workforce diversity and foster workplace inclusion. It's about the people, right? It takes people to make the industry work. Also, it's about developing a diverse talent pipeline. And that's where you all come in. I don't know who is familiar with the Securities and Exchange Commission or the financial services industry, but there are jobs across the board for everyone. And another part of what we do is financial literacy, and that's what we're doing right now. Supplier diversity, expanding contracting opportunities for diverse suppliers to include minority-owned and women-owned businesses so that everybody can have a slice of the pie. And then the third leg is, as I mentioned, diversity and inclusion in regulated entities, promoting diversity and inclusion in the agencies that we oversee. That only makes sense, right? If we're holding ourselves to a standard, then we have to hold the agencies that we oversee to a standard. Robert, any responses on diversity?
Oh yeah, I mean, not surprising because I know this group of students. That some really great responses. Diversity is different groups of people come from different backgrounds. Diversity is unique and will help us to get an understanding and learn about different cultures. Equity is the basis of diversity and inclusion. Creating a level playing field is the key to diversity. We should embrace diversity and be inclusive and accepting of others, regardless of negative stereotypes portrayed by them. I mean, number of really
excellent.
So not surprising, these students.
Bravo.
There's a reason why they're in this organization. So
absolutely. And so I have another question for you all. Please put in the chat, as it relates to financial literacy in schools, right? It's not mandatory throughout the United States for financial literacy to be a part of the high school curriculum. Can you guess the number of states where financial literacy is mandatory?
Ooh, I don't know this one. Ooh,
I know, right?
right.
It was very surprising. I'll say that.
Okay, I'll give you the 4, 15, 6, 10, 28, 21, let's see, 12.
Okay,
Any
so
other take?
I
5, 10. Go ahead.
I'll tell you, it's roughly 6.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
roughly 6. And so, I would challenge the students to tell me which states they believe have mandatory financial literacy in high school as part of the high school curriculum. So if you want to guess which states, put that in the chat and Robert will let us know what your responses are.
California, Florida, New York, California, Pennsylvania, Washington, Colorado, New Jersey,
New Jersey,
Washington,
yes.
New Jersey, yes, Virginia,
Virginia, yes.
yes, Maryland,
No,
Texas,
there's a
Connecticut.
county in Maryland that is mandatory, but I don't know that the entire state it's mandatory.
Okay, Delaware.
So here are the states: New Jersey, Alabama, Iowa, North Carolina, Tennessee, Utah, and Virginia. Of all 52 states, those are the states where financial literacy is mandatory as a part of the high school curriculum. So that's
By the way, one of the students didn't know Utah.
Excellent.
I would have never thought it.
Excellent. So, that's important to know. It's mandatory in some schools, but not mandatory in all. So you guys are doing the best thing for your future is to engage at this point. And I don't think I really gave any background on me, and I'll make this quick. I have 30 some odd, we'll leave it there, years of federal service. And I've been with now on my 4th federal agency. So I started at USDA, which is the Department of Agriculture, ended up at NOAA, which is under Commerce. It's the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And then I was at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, right? Understand your options in terms of careers. I've done a number of things. I was in facilities management most of my career. Now I'm in diversity and inclusion. Whatever it is you want to do, don't let anybody tell you no. Don't accept no for answer. You can do and be whatever you want to. And savings is so critical. It's like the ultimate. I never, ever dreamed that I would be able to save the way I'm saving for my retirement. And so if I can do it, I'm sure that you can. Like, I don't even tell anybody about my financial wellness because it's not anything that we really discuss. But I felt like if I'm going to be a part of this conversation, then I not only need to talk about it, but I need to let you all know that it's attainable. So if there aren't any questions for me, I will turn it over to Robert. And thank you all so much for participating.
So, Evelyn, thank you so much. I just want to, so before we close out, I want to pick up on what Evelyn mentioned, and there's a correlation between savings, investing, and career. And the career gives you the opportunity to expand your options with regard to investings and savings. And my colleagues here tonight, who I feel very fortunate to be with, you all have over 90 years of experience in various industry, including the financial services industry. But I say that because we've all been through different experiences and traveled different paths. And those paths have afforded us, the opportunity to be here tonight and to do different things. So I just want to talk a little bit about the financial services industry And the reason that we want to do that is this, and I talk about my personal experience. I'm an individual who spent his formative years in public housing in Brooklyn, New York, and then went to public school. My parents, were lower income, not didn't have a high school education, and when I was growing up, I had no exposure to the investing in financial markets, and used the source that my parents always pushed education, which is a key to success. I will tell you that. I'm going to do that, but I was fortunate using my public education to get into a work career. Get something based on environment and family familiarity, and my family law enforcement, but I was just criminal law and really didn't want to do that. And a alumni at the law school that I went to, the University of Pennsylvania, had been, hey, you want to get hands-on experience? Let's take out the Securities and Exchange Commission. I didn't know what that was, what they did, and I said, okay, it sounds interesting. Did my homework. Was fortunate, went for an interview that led to another interview, and eventually I got it. I got a job started at the SEC. I tell you this for two things. One, regardless of your background, and as Evelyn said, you can do anything you want to do if you don't let obstacles get in the way. There were a number of times when people tried to deter me from either going to law school or to a particular college. No, that's not for you. It's going to be too tough for you. Maybe that's not what you want to do. If you have your mind set on a goal, then reach for the stars and try to reach that goal. And I knew early on I wanted to be a lawyer, and I wasn't going to let anybody deter me, because I thought it was important to be an advocate for people who were underrepresented and underserved. And that's why being a lawyer was very important to me. The second thing I point out to you, and this is something that's going to be critically important to you all throughout your careers, is networking. If it wasn't for that individual who was in the network at the law school, who recommended to me to directed me to the Securities and Exchange Commission, I may not be here with you today. And further to the network, when I went for the interview, the individual who interviewed me was familiar with the college that I went to. So that's really all we talked about. We didn't even really talk about was doing the law school. But I say that to you, for you early on, we talked about the power of compounding with investments. I want you to understand the power of networking when you're going throughout your career. And that means reaching out to people now, using social media, because you all have that tool available. If you have a certain career in mind, reaching out, you'd be surprised if you reach out to people who don't even know you, and you explain to them who you are and that you'd like to talk about what they're doing. You'd be surprised how many people will respond to you in a positive way to spend time, even if they're busy, because I've done it a number of times on LinkedIn. People have reached out to me, and, Mr. March, can you spend 15 minutes just to talk? And I'll do that. So want to encourage you all to really think about, one, do not be deterred in your career goals and aspirations. Keep reaching for the stars. Two, it's really important that you leverage networking and use the tools you have available to you for doing research and looking at resources, because it is critically important that you be prepared to deal with these challenges. Now, with the financial services industry, the thing we want to raise to you is one of the things we found is that many uh, young students or students like yourself don't consider the financial services industry for a number of reasons. One, they don't take people who look like me. Two, they have limited professions, opportunities, and that's not really, I don't want to be a sales trader. I don't want to look at stocks trading all day. That's not what I want to do. So a couple of things there, and one of the reasons we're really thrilled to be here today with you all and really appreciate it. The financial services industry, when I talk about the financial services industry, I'm talking about banks, brokerage firms, mortgage lenders, insurance companies, investment advisory firms, private equity and capital. It's a large industry that really is responsible for a significant portion of the economy in this nation and globally, right? It really is important. But I want you to just kind of think about more broadly some of the careers that may be available in the financial services industry, and for you just to kind of put it in your bucket of options, if you will, because you always want to give yourself as many options as possible. So here are some of the careers that in the industry, you know, Evelyn had mentioned earlier, lawyers, economists, analysts, but there's things like human resource specialists. There's information technology specialists. There's the digital, technology is a really big um, issue today, an industry. So there's digital transformation specialists. There's diversity and inclusion specialists. There are researchers, compliance personnel, auditors, human resource staff. So there's a wide range of careers that may be available to you in the financial services industry. And what we're doing is going around and we're talking to different people because, again, we understand that the view of the industry can be very limited by what you see on TV, what you may see in the movies, what you see on social media. And the industry is much broader than that. So we want to use this as an opportunity to say to you, maybe, just inquire into it, think about it as another option as you're going forward, thinking about your different careers. And, Evelyn is a case in point in terms of utilizing different options, going from one industry to another, leveraging those experiences that you get throughout your career, and then using that as you're moving forward. And we will tell you today in the office that Evelyn and I work in, diversity, inclusion, and opportunity is a major priority in the financial services industry, including the SEC. And we're very proud of the work that's being done at the SEC in terms of affording all people with all backgrounds, all different characteristics, opportunity, as one of you described so aptly, giving people the opportunity. And why that's important is because the industry always tries to look ahead. And in looking ahead, they realize the changing demographics. And so where are the future employees in the changing demographic? They're going to come from different pools of people. Also, these firms understand that in order to get you all to their firms, they have to be more diverse because frankly, you all are much sharper and astute than the three of us were when we were doing this. And they understand that today you all are more demanding. So you're just not looking for a job. You're saying, hey, I like what you do. I like your salary, but what do you do in diversity and inclusion? What are your corporate social responsibility policies? What type of engagement do you have in the community? How socially conscious are you? So all those things are things that they are thinking about, and that all goes broadly into the diversity and inclusion bucket. So I just, again, wanted to note that, there are opportunities available in the industry in a wide range, not only at the SEC. We'd love to have you at the SEC, and I can't underscore that. But more importantly, as Alan noted and as Evelyn noted, our job, we have a three-pronged mission. And part of that mission is for investor protection, capital formation, and also integrity to markets. And if we get people with different backgrounds into the industry, that benefits the industry because you all bring different perspectives that frankly may raise issues to those in the industry that may prevent some inappropriate activity because you're at the table. And that is found to be the case in frankly a number of circumstances. In terms of things you should think about when you're looking, I mentioned research. Think about internships, paid or not paid. Get experience, speak to people, and again, network. And I'll stop there and again, we thank you for the opportunity. I'll check to see if there are any questions. I don't see any. Alan, Evelyn, any any parting words?
For me, I echo your sentiments and what Alan shared. And again, based on my experience, save a little for a long time. Be patient and also have balance. That's very important. And do your research. Like Alan said, if it's too good to be true, it is. Don't, there's affinity fraud, which we touched upon. Just be mindful, save, and plan for your future. And thank you for having us.
Yeah, I would just add, I don't want to detract from your comments, Robert, because those were critically important to everybody. But we're all saying the same thing from our experience. I think Evelyn's point is that how many states have financial literacy programs shows that all of you are doing the right thing because you need to educate yourself. And to underscore Robert's point, your career is critically important, education critically important, obviously your family. But the point that we started out with is your finances are also important. So your primary concern is your career and your family and your education, but pay attention to your finances along the way, as Evelyn has done, and Robert and I have done as well. And the last point is investing doesn't have to be complicated. There are some simple approaches that can work if you pay attention and take a long-term view. So it doesn't have to be complicated. There are some simple ways to approach it. And so I'll leave it with that. And it's been a privilege to be here, and I appreciate being included. Thank you to Grace and Robert and Evelyn.
And I just want to close by saying thank you again to the National Society of High School Scholars and to the students and panelists out there. We wish you nothing but the best. And just we hope that we left you some nuggets to think about as you're moving forward. But in our view, the sky's the limit for you all, and the fact that you're here tonight with us, just reinforces that view on our part. So thank you and good night. We really appreciate this opportunity. Be well, everybody, and stay safe.